Hello, this presentation provides a review of bond valuation, and Pat will be Professor of Finance for the University of Northwest. As a quick example, here we consider a $1,000 par bond with a coupon rate of 8% and maturity of 5 years. We're assuming that right now market interest rates, which define the yield to maturity on this bond, is 7%. So now what this means is for someone who already is in possession of this existing bond, that individual is earning 8% on $1,000, which is $80 every year. That's how much he or she is going to be getting for the next 5 years, as I illustrate here. As it turns out, though, right now in the market, interest rates have dropped since the time this bond was issued, and is currently bonds like this are currently selling to yield 100 basis points less, which is in this case 7%. So anyhow, the question here is for us to calculate the value of this bond. So now there are three things we must know to determine the value of any financial instrument. The first would be, what are the cash flows that we can expect to earn from the instrument? In this case, over the next 5 years, we're going to be receiving $80 every year. Additionally, upon maturity of the bond, we are going to be getting back the face value, which is also called the par value or the maturity value of this bond. So these are the cash flows. The second is, what's the maturity of the investments? What's the investment period? In this case, of course, it's 5 years. And then finally, what's the discount rate? The discount rate in this case represents the yield to maturity on the bond, which is the rate of return that you're going to earn if you purchase this bond and you hold it until maturity. In this example, it is 7%. Again, what this means is that if a company with a comparable credit rating were to come out right now to issue a new bond, borrowing $1,000 for each bond for 5 years, that company with a similar credit rating is going to have to pay you $70 every year, which is 7% on 1,000. For this existing bond, again, we're getting paid 8% because it's that's the rate set at the time of issue. All right, so now let's go and look at how the calculations are carried out. Now, this is a review, of course, a material that you probably were exposed to in your initial corporate finance class. And again, to find the present value of any asset, you'd have to discount all the cash flows at the discount rate R over the period. So substituting and calculating, this bond is a premium bond. It's going to be selling for about $1,041. And of course, it should be a premium bond. Why? Because the bond pays you interest at a rate greater than the current market interest rate. So we know already that this bond is going to sell for more than its face value. If it were, I scroll back here, paying you a rate less than 7%. If you put in such a rate, say 6% or 5% right here, you're going to find that this price would be less than $1,000, in which case the bond would be called a discount bond. Now though, using your financial calculator, the preferred one is BA2+. And putting in all the values right here, as I indicate, you're going to come out with the correct answer of $1,041. So on your BA2+, after you clear it, make sure you type the number first, 80, and then you hit PMT. 1,000, you hit FV. 5, you hit N, and then 7, you're going to hit 1 over I on your BA2+, and then you compute PV, and that's how you're going to get this. You might see a negative in front. Don't be bothered by that. Just hit the plus minus key on the lower right corner of the calculator and you'd be as good as gold. Now though, bonds such as this typically pay interest semi-annually. In other words, rather than $80 every year, you're going to be hooked up with $40 every 6 months. And of course, the face value is $1,000. So again, the payments, the periodic payments and the face value constitute the cash flows. The second would be the maturity period, which in this case is 5 years. But since the bond pays interest semi-annually, you're going to have to multiply 5 by 2 to know that 5 years equal 10 semi-annual periods. And finally, the discount rate, which is the yield to maturity on the bond. In this example, 7% per annum. So halve it to get the semi-annual rate of 3.5%. So again, on your calculator, putting in $40 every 6 months, $40 as payments, 1,000 as FV, 10 as N, and 3.5 as your R or I over Y on the BA2 plus, and then you compute PV, you're going to come up with a much more definitive result of 1041.58. So that's it really. Now though, what I show here is the calculation of your yield to maturity if you were given the price of the bond. So here we're saying, suppose this bond were to sell for 1,030. What would have been your yield to maturity? If you paid 1,030, hold the bond for 5 years, and receive $80 every year, or in this case, semi-annually speaking, 40 bucks every 6 months. And again, it's 10 semi-annual periods, and here you paid 1,030. So here you're going to be solving for R, the rate of return. And when you solve it, because these values are semi-annual values, you're going to get a semi-annual rate. This semi-annual rate is not your final answer. Make sure you double up on it to get your final answer. You cannot express a rate of return on a period other than annualized period. So when you put in all these semi-annual figures and then you compute your I over Y, you're going to get a semi-annual rate of 3.6368. But you're going to have to multiply it by 2 to make sure you annualize your final results. And that's all there is to it. And finally here, suppose though that this bond is a callable bond, meaning the bond can be retired prior to maturity. So again, we're assuming 8% coupon rate, $80 every year, or $40 semi-annually. Now though, the bond can be called here 3 years from now. So N sub C means number of years to call is 3 years. And if this bond is called 3 years from now, the company is going to pay each bondholder $100 over and above the face value of $1,000 for a total of 1,100 bucks. So that means that the call premium here is 10%. 10% of 1,000 is 100. So the total money that you're going to get back if this bond is called 3 years from now would be 1,100 bucks, which again amounts to the face value of 1,000 plus the premium of 10% of 1,000 or 100 bucks. So now let's assume just for fun that this bond is currently selling at a premium $1,050, and we wish to calculate what your rate of return would be if you purchased this bond for $1,050, hold this bond for 3 years, and then the bond is called so that you receive $1,100 for each bond. So again, assuming semi-annual payments, you're going to be getting 40 bucks every year, every 6 months. And upon call, the future value of the bond, which now let's not call it face value, let's call it the future value of this bond, which would be the call price, would be 1,100 bucks. And we know the number of years to call is 3, so semi-annually speaking, it's 6-month periods. And again, we're assuming you can pay $1,050 to purchase this bond right now. Given all this information and solving for I over Y on your BA2 plus, you're going to get 4.52%. Again, that's only a semi-annual rate, so you're going to have to double up on it to get the final correct annualized figure of 9.04%. So 9.04% is going to be the rate of return that you're going to earn if you purchase this bond for $1,050, hold it for 3 years, and receive $80 or $40 every 6 months, and $1,100 at the end of 3 years, which would include the face value and the call premium of 100 bucks. So now, some people ask, why do companies issue callable bonds? Well, it's because they do want to take advantage of a fall in interest rates during the time of the bond. So for example, if this bond is issued right now paying 8%, for 5 years, and then later, say 2 years from now, interest rates drop to, let's say, 5%. As you know, this company is bound to keep paying you 8% or $80 per bond for 5 years. But if rates drop to 5%, if they have the opportunity, they would prefer to call the bond, reissue for the remaining period at the lower rate of 5% or $50 every year, saving $30 per bond. So the question is, Can the company do that? The answer is no, unless the bond is a callable bond. If the bond is a callable bond, then the company would definitely consider retiring the bond, meaning calling the bonds and then reissuing for the remaining period at the lower rate of, in this example, which is not shown here, 5% or $50 every year. But as you know, companies are not going to be quick to reissue a bond each time interest rates fall, because although they would save on the interest costs, on the interest charges, remember they would have to pay you the call premium. Additionally, there will be flotation costs associated with a new issue. So all of these things have to be considered in concert before determining whether there's going to be a cost savings associated with calling a bond and reissuing. These are issues examined in a bond refunding analysis, which is presented in a separate video. Again, I'm Pat Obi, Professor of Finance, Purdue University, Northwest.